For this week in game news, we're listening to music provided by Chris Geehan, aka @HyperduckChris on Twitter. You can check out more of his stuff at hyperduck.co.uk. Today, we're hearing his remix of the Chrono Trigger opening theme.
Please note, however, that I was not dismissing the idea of making games for smart devices, as I stated at the January 2014 Corporate Management Policy Briefing that a development team of Nintendo would create a smart device application and that I had not ruled out the possibility of making games.
Probably the most exciting video game news of this week were Nintendo's announcements. Their main announcement was that they'd be releasing games on smartphones in conjunction with DNA. In case you've not been following Nintendo, you should know that Nintendo used to have a very strict stance regarding releasing their games on non-Nintendo platforms. Specifically that they didn't want to do it ever. While Nintendo will not be porting existing games to smartphones and tablets, or so they say right now, they will be producing new games specifically for mobile. These new games are going to leverage Nintendo's IPs. The short of it is that you can expect to see Mario on your smartphone sometime soon. Personally, I'm hoping that they bring Pikmin to tablets at some point in time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. While this is pretty cool news, I'm a bit concerned that Nintendo's going to make some mistakes on mobile. The mere existence of Pokemon Shuffle fuels my apprehension. Pokemon Shuffle, for the uninitiated, is like Nintendo's take on Candy Crush. The mechanics aren't identical, but the intent seems to be the same. Make players drop money in order to avoid waiting to play more of the game. I talk more about what's wrong with Pokemon Shuffle in my video, The 5 Commandments of Free-to-Play Games. If you'd like to know just what's wrong with Pokemon Shuffle, as well as what I hope Nintendo does not do with their mobile games, check that out. Nintendo's other announcement was very exciting. The Nintendo NX. The Nintendo NX is the code name of whatever console Nintendo is currently working on. What Nintendo says is that it's built around a brand new concept, and that it's supposed to somehow bridge the gap between home console gaming and gaming on a handheld. Additionally, whatever the NX hardware is, it's going to tie into the replacement for Club Nintendo that Nintendo's currently developing with the aforementioned DNA. In other Nintendo-related news, Mario Party 10 was released. The Wii U take on the Mario Party franchise met with middling reviews. Apparently, it's not exactly a bad game, but it's more of the same. Apparently, the Wii U gamepad isn't being utilized quite as well as it could be. If you thought Mario Party 9 was stale, then you'll probably want to skip 10. On the other hand, if it's been a good long time since you've partied with Mario, then it could be worth checking out. If you own a 3DS, and I don't mean just any 3DS, but the fancy, expensive new 3DS that Nintendo just put out with extra processing power, you're going to want to check out this next trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. The game is a port of Xenoblade Chronicles, which came out a few years ago for the original Wii. If you're into JRPGs, you absolutely must check it out.
We can definitely do this! Okay, here we go! Wah! Right, you're up! Yo! Wow, down! Shala!
My turn!
So you can fight back?
Nice!
We did it!
Open your flies at me! Hope I'm not interrupting.
It's him! Not just him, and tons of them look like swords! Let him have it, beast! You okay, Dumban? Now's our chance!
Welcome, true heir to the Monado.
I'll be the first to confess that I'm not that big on shmups. Besides the occasional neon-colored twin-stick shooter, They just don't really tickle my fancy. That said, if you own a PlayStation 4, you owe it to yourself to check out Jamestown Plus. The original Jamestown came out for Mac, PC, and Linux a few years ago. It's a very unusual take on the shmup. Sure, you have a spaceship that fires lasers on Mars, but this isn't just any old Mars. Rather, it's colonial Mars. Jamestown is an alternate history, sci-fi, steampunk shmup. It features co-op for up to 4 players, and the edition that's being released on the PS4, Jamestown Plus, comes with 3 new characters, 6 new weapons, and 2 new levels. These levels are really impressive. They include new bosses, including a pirate queen who just sounds awesome, new enemy types, and, of course, fresh new story. Also, the Gunpowder, Treason, and Plot DLC that came out for PC is also available on the PS4. Another game trailer that we were excited about this week was the trailer for LEGO Jurassic World. Unless you've been living underneath some sort of movie-related box, you should know that Jurassic World is the next movie in the Jurassic Park franchise. The movie is probably going to be one of 2015's blockbusters, and the LEGO game is probably going to be fantastic, as the LEGO games usually are.
Starts, then later there's running and screaming.
Now, while we don't have any fresh footage of it, we do have some good news about the next Star Wars Battlefront. Apparently, we'll be getting a first look at the upcoming game during the Star Wars celebration in Anaheim, California from April 16th to the 19th, 2015. Additionally, the game has been confirmed for a holiday 2015 release on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. One rather interesting game that stumbled across our radar this week was Verona. Verona is a third-person action game set on a somewhat dystopian version of future Earth in the 22nd century, in which humans have successfully stripped the Earth dry of everything good. Well, almost everything good. You see, the rich have managed to escape into outer space. Meanwhile, the poor live on Earth, and there are teams of people who go around looking for valuable things to sell to those living in space. According to the developers, the game draws inspiration from Firefly, but also from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Usually when games try and tackle romance, the results are less than stellar. How the story in Verona will turn out remains to be seen. That said, it's clear that a lot of love has gone into the world of Verona. On the game's official website, there's plenty of lore about the game world, and some of the characters. There is some rather unexpected news from Atari this week, specifically with regards to TxK. The shambling corpse that was once a shining star in the game industry has made demands that the game TxK be removed from the PlayStation Vita store on account of its similarities to Tempest 2000. Admittedly, when you take a look at TxK, it does look an awful lot like Tempest. That's because the game was meant to be a spiritual successor to Tempest. That spiritual successor was developed by Tim Minter. Tim Minter is the man who developed Tempest 2000. In spite of the fact that the game's been out for over a year, Atari hasn't really made any action until now. All things considered, it is rather unusual that Atari pursue TxK. Tempest is an intellectual property that they haven't done anything with in a long time. Additionally, there are other Tempest clones for sale on other marketplaces. As you might have imagined, things do get stranger with this case. Jeff Minter says that he didn't see a penny from the release of Tempest X, which was, in his words, made exactly enough different that it would be legally considered a different game. Interestingly enough, in Tempest X, when you entered a certain Easter egg into the high score table, it would bring forth Tempest 2000 itself. There has been an official response from Atari made to Gamasutra. What was said is that Atari was surprised and dismayed by the very close similarities between TxK and the Tempest franchise, and that Atari has been in continuous contact with the developer since the game launched in hopes that the matter would be resolved. A good long time ago, a video featuring video games, retro games to be specific, attacking New York City went viral. It was some clever CGI trickery at work, and it was pretty amusing. Its popularity was apparently great enough that the creatively bankrupt Hollywood has appropriated it. Alright, jokes aside, there is going to be a movie called Pixels, and it's based on the short. Whether or not it's any good, I really can't say. On the one hand, the concept certainly sounds cool. Aliens have misinterpreted a signal coming from Earth containing footage of video games to somehow mean that they should attack the Earth with video games. On the other hand, this movie has a couple of strikes going against it. For starters, it stars Adam Sandler, and honestly, when was the last time you saw a good movie starring Adam Sandler? Strike number 2 is that it's a video game movie. The last time I saw a good video game movie, it was Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which wasn't explicitly a video game movie. It was more of a movie that featured video game elements. It was a really cool postmodern comedy type thing, but it wasn't through and through a video game movie like Pixels is aiming to be. Actually, you know, I'm wrong. There was also Wreck-It Ralph. Maybe there's a chance that Pixels will be funny. Whatever the case, I'm not gonna get my hopes up.
Oh, my sweet little boy. Look how big you've grown.
It's so sweet. He's so sweet.
Somebody annihilate this stupid thing!
I'm a little bit sad that I didn't hear about the Kickstarter for Tahira, Echoes of the Astral Empire, until the day that it was ending. Tahira is a turn-based tactics RPG, kind of like the Banner Saga or the Fire Emblem series. It tells the story of Princess Tahira of Avestan. She lives in a small kingdom in humanity's last great city. You see, in the world of Tahira, humanity once sailed the stars. Unfortunately, the intergalactic empire has since collapsed. If you're a fan of Asimov's Foundation, you'll know what this is about. The game has a really cool visual style, and I like the setting too. It isn't too often that you'll find a game with a setting inspired by the Middle East. Tahira is inspired by Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Israel, Nepal, and India. That's not another lame war shooter. That's not to put down the people who make Call of Hardline Black Ghosts, but it's refreshing to see something new done with the setting. I backed the game at the $10 level. Now this is 10 Australian dollars, which is about 7-something US. At that level, I'll be getting a Steam key as well as a DRM-free copy of the game once it's finished. Tahira, Echoes of the Astral Empire, is set to come out on Mac, PC, and Linux early next year. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Call our toll-free number for a free idea kit. Endless pools are simple to install, easy to maintain, and economical to run. Swim or exercise against a smooth current that adjusts to any speed or ability. Perfect for year-round health, fitness, and relaxation. Call our toll-free number or visit our website for your free Endless Pools idea kit.
If you're a fan of Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, I have some fantastic news for you. A text-adventure game set in the world of the film has just been released. You can get to it by going to interstellarmovie.com/adventure. I'm not going to spoil the story, but I do feel comfortable saying that in the game, you play as an astronaut who's landed on this planet, and your goal is to figure out if it's habitable for human life. The puzzles in the game aren't particularly difficult. Again, while I'm taking care not to spoil anything, I have to say that I think that the maze puzzle was definitely the most creative. While there's a certain degree of recursion in that puzzle that I'm not going to spoil for you, and that does make it a little bit confusing, solving it is very satisfying. There were a few little issues with the game. There were some typos, and at some point in time, the game said that I could only go east, when in reality I could only go west. Was this some sort of postmodern attempt at an unreliable narrator, or just a little mistake on the part of the developers? Well, that's for you to decide. In spite of the little issues, however, this interstellar text adventure is absolutely worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of the movie. Regarding a crowdfunding project that I'm not late to, there's a new trailer out for Titanic, Honor and Glory. In case you've not heard of it, Titanic, Honor and Glory is a very ambitious project that looks to recreate the Titanic in its entirety. It's a video game after James Cameron's heart. Besides the mode that'll allow you to just explore the Titanic, there'll also be a story mode to the game. This is a project that I've been following for a while. Hopefully it turns out well. If you're a fan of Dota 2, and if you're a fan of moderately stupid simulator games, you'll be pleased to know that the Goat Simulator Goat is coming to Dota 2 as a courier. As you may have guessed, Goat Simulator really isn't my sort of game. However, even I have to admit that the flying animation for this courier looks incredible. I also have to admit that the trailer they released for this thing is super creative. Suppose you never left Civilization 3 behind. Maybe you just really enjoy stacking armies, or the game just has a certain appeal to you. Or maybe your weird friend gave you Civilization 3 on CD. I might as well confess to it now, yes, I am the weird friend who gave another friend of mine Civ 3 on CD and he absolutely loves it. Well, the great news is that Civ 3 has gotten a bit of an update. Indeed, this is the first update to Civ 3 in a few years, and it replaces GameSpy with Steam for the sake of multiplayer. On the part of the devs, it's a really great move. If you don't yet own Civilization 3 but would like to, you should definitely check it out on Steam. It's currently going for $1.24 thanks to the 10th anniversary sale of TxK.
All the time.
The new Hex Grid 3D environment was so lush, I just couldn't stop myself.
On the subject of video games that nourish your inner dictator, Cities Skylines is a massive success. The city building game that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks has sold over 500,000 copies. It's probably going to be worth picking up in the next Steam sale, or if you're impatient, grab it now. It's a good game, and I'm pretty sure it deserves your money. Now, if you're a fan of Hayao Miyazaki's work, you might want to check out Aegis Defenders. A while ago, it had a Kickstarter that was quite a success. You see, Aegis Defenders is a platformer. It's set in a world that draws some very clear inspiration from Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which is my all-time favorite movie. The developers have recently hosted a live stream of the game's progress thus far. It's looking pretty good.
You can pretty much plug in a controller or unplug a controller whenever you want to have the co-op. So the demo you're looking at right now is it has all the story and cutscene triggers turned off, just because a lot of that stuff is still temporary. Everything you're looking at right now is obviously still pretty early work in progress. But yeah, it's what we have so far for our upcoming demo.
So the idea is when, if someone were coming into this demo blind, there would be a lot of like tutorial text and copy to tell them exactly how to use all these features.
Yeah.
Finally, if you're a fan of RTS, you'd be pleased to know that Ethereum is now available for pre-order on Steam. If you drop money for the game now, you'll get instant access to the game's multiplayer. I managed to get my hands on Ethereum, and thus far I've just played the tutorial, but from what I can tell, this game certainly has quite a bit of personality. Ethereum is a real-time strategy science fiction game in which you're vying for resources. It's simple and fast-paced. You build outposts and bases, and you place refineries on top of mines. You use the resources that you gather in order to build more units, and you use those units to go to battle and collect more territory. Thus far, I've had a pretty good time with the game. While I have yet to try the multiplayer, which I really should get around to doing, the game is thus far looking great. Be sure to visit blackmanandrobin.com, as I'll have a piece up on Ethereum once I've gotten around to the multiplayer. Well, that's it for this week's game news. Be sure to follow at Blackman and Robin for all the latest reviews, previews, and interviews. And follow me at Jordan Cameron for my overviews.